Hey everybody, it's Amy Anamkara, and I am here with another interview today. But let me tell you a little bit about myself first. So, I am a death doula. I am an intuitive healing touch practitioner, and I am also an Anamkara. So, today we have Kate Bagnata. Is that right? Did I say it right?
Bagnati. Bagnati.
Bagnati. Bagnati?
Bagnati.
I-
Bagnati.
Okay. So Kate and I have actually gotten to know each other through the Connecticut Death Collective. I've gone to a few of their events, and you guys are just super cool. So that's why I wanted to have you come on. Um, so I'm going to just read your little bio here, which is not really a little bio, but that's okay. So Kate is a death doula and events coordinator for the Connecticut Death Collective. In addition to her important work creating a death positive and informed death community, she helps women give birth in a safe and supportive environment. She is a wife and mother of three, including one with special needs. Kate's sister, Melissa Bennett, is also active at the collective as a volunteer. I want to just make sure that I did a little shout out to Melissa. So let me tell you a little bit about the collective. So the Connecticut Death Collective was created in the beginning of 2022 to serve a need and to establish community and important conversation around death and dying in our home state of Connecticut. They are a growing community that hosts vibrant events around the state, including death cafes, potluck death dinners, and more. And I do feel that I need to give a special shout out to Jackie Genovese, the founder of Connecticut Death Collective, who has decided to step away from the collective to pursue other dreams. It is through her spark that the fire continues, and so we wish her the very best. So, hi, Kate.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How's that?
Good. Did I get your bio okay?
Yeah, I am not actively doing anything in the birth world right now. I dabbled as a birth doula. What I realized is having three young kids, I wasn't going to be able to just leave in the middle of the night to go help a woman during their birth. I attended two, and then I missed the third because it happened very fast and in the night, and I just couldn't get it together.
Right.
Um, so fast forward, I think 5, 6 years, I got into this work because I lost my mother, and I found the collective early in her diagnosis at the beginning of 2022, and I actually saw the Death Cafe, and I said to my mom, I was like, I feel like you need to go, you need to attend one of these. It was virtual, so it was like, why not? But she just was terrified. She was terrified to talk about it. She was terrified to yeah, to have it. She didn't want to talk about it. So
So she didn't go to
um
the Death Cafe.
she did not. But then when I found out about the in-person event at Sticks and Stones in June of 2022, I said to Mel, I was like, we need to go. I was like, Mom's not getting any better. I was like, we need to at least know what this is about. Maybe we'll meet somebody that, can give us some advice. And the amazing thing was is that they set up this event and had no idea that it was going to become so needed. I think they were just like, let's have a potluck and let's get together and start having these conversations. And a month later, we're in the hospital with my mom, and I'm like, we
Oh,
need
that's
help.
fast.
Yeah, it was really fast. We reached out to the collective, and we said, we met a few people at the last potluck. Can we have their numbers? And one happened to be Sarah Tenez, who worked in hospice social work for like 20 plus years and is now a death doula. And then Geraldine Valentine, who does energy work at bedside. And we knew that we needed because our mother was like hanging on.
Yeah.
She clearly had unfinished stuff, but really wasn't able to communicate it on this, earthly plane. And she was terrified of death, and she was in a lot of pain. And we were just like, well, we need some help. Um, and so through that, um, and over the course of that year, we just kept going to these potlucks because we were like, we're going to continue to meet people in this, whether they're working or they just can relate to your story. I mean, everyone can relate to the loss of someone or the loss of a job or a dog or a cat or, something.
Right.
You're going to have a loss at some time. And so um, these potlucks became like, something to look forward to every month.
Right.
Um, and everyone was different. There was
Did you
somebody
end
new
up
in everyone.
Was your mom on hospice?
So basically, everything happened so fast. She was in the hospital within like the third day. She's like, I'm done. I don't want to do anymore.
Yep.
So hospice kind of hopped on, but it was not, we just didn't get out of it what we would have needed. We would have loved to have taken her home, but there was no way that was happening in the time frame that we had. Um, the hospice social worker was fine. Getting morphine was a challenge, and she was in a lot of pain. And so finally, when Sarah came, she was able to have, my mom was still lucid. She was able to have a conversation with her privately, and then she had a conversation with us and kind of helped us navigate the next steps. And then Geraldine came the day of, like the early afternoon of the evening she passed, and did some, healing work, hands-on with my sister and my mom's best friend from childhood. Like just, and then she passed that night. So
Wow.
it was a pretty profound experience.
Are you, so you trained to be a death doula?
So I did. I recently finished. I did one class back in November. Just it was like an all-day workshop in New York City with the Death Wives, and then I they had a spring death school come up, and I was like, I can't afford it. And then I was like, I got to figure something out because I just wanted to continue
Yeah.
with the momentum
That's
of
on you.
learning. And I also in this simultaneously had signed up for I want to say they're in the Midwest. They're called the Death and Grief Workers Collective.
Okay. I'm
And
just writing stuff down here. Okay.
yeah, they did a 6 week, we met once a week for 6 weeks, and the topic was compassion. Compassion in all the different forms, like let me see if I have it actually, because they used the book that they referenced a lot was Pima Chadron. I don't know if you're familiar with her, or but it's called the Death and Grief Workers Collective, and they did cultivating compassion in community, and then it was compassion in grief, compassion in hopelessness. Like it was just a really interesting way of thinking about, well, if you're going to be in this work, you've got to have compassion, and for your, not only for yourself but for the people around you, and that we're all connected, right? We're all energy, we're all connected. So it's just continually being aware that, I don't know, that in order to help each other we have to be compassionate in all ways. um, so I literally just finished death school and this collective 2 weeks ago, and the
Congratulations.
one, yeah, it was, I'm like, I'm not gonna be able to fit this in, and then I was like, I'm fitting it in. um I One takeaway from that November workshop was like, go into your community. If I could ask one thing of you, go into your community and just talk to one group of people about some of the things you've learned. And so in January, I did my first like 1 hour workshop in person, with the help of my sister, um, at the Fairfield Museum and History Center. And I was super nervous, and and I had so much information to share in 1 hour. It was like, there's no way this is gonna,
Right.
And we ended up, for the most part, the conversation was talking about green burials because that is on people's minds, all the different options out there that most people are not aware of because they aren't. It's like casket, embalming, cremation, stop. Like that's most people's idea of what, the end looks like.
I think that when you talk about green burials, I mean, is that something that people are doing here in New England? Is there room for that? Because it seems
Yeah,
like it's more like an out west kind of an idea.
it's definitely more accessible out there. Because it's either legal in their state, all aspects of green burial are legal in their state, and they just have more resources. Like New England, obviously, we're for the older times. We've got the traditional cemeteries and graveyards, and most people, yeah, they're either in a mausoleum or ashes scattered with the in a garden, or they're on a mantle, right? It's becoming more, well, the funny thing is like green burial is not a new thing, it's an old thing. It's like, what did we do before caskets and embalming? We just buried our loved one in the ground. Like that was
Right.
either you know. The first funeral home in this state finally just bought the aquamation machine. So they have started, I think, last month. And I think they've already done like 20 bodies, 25 bodies
What
in
is
the
that?
process. So it's water, it's alkaline hydrolysis or water cremation. And basically, your loved one is placed in a vessel, 150 gallons of water in this solution. And I think it takes about 4 hours. And then what happens is the liquid, um, what's left is the skeleton. And the skeleton is cremulated, basically like in a fire cremation. It's ground down, but it's cleaner. It's just safer for the environment, the processes. Um, and then if your loved ones have the capacity, uh, they can take the liquid and then use that in their garden, on trees,
Hmm.
to water plants. You could plant a tree and water that once a week for the next year in honor of your loved one, you know. So it's a pretty cool way and a cleaner way for the environment. Um,
So who is this group that's doing it? Who's the funeral home?
um, we're out of Manchester. Of course, I'm not going to remember their name.
You don't remember, just let me know later and I'll just put it
Yeah,
in the description because I'm curious about that.
yeah.
I just feel like, yeah, just like you said, it's either a burial or it's a cremation. Um, Here's a fun question for you, Kate. What do you want to do?
Well, it's really fun because I
You
keep
got
changing my
plans?
mind. I keep changing my mind because I keep having these conversations, and I think that's the key, right? You're allowed to change your mind as many times as you want. Obviously, if you want to pick something and tell somebody so they have an idea of what you want is a
Correct.
huge one. Just tell, whether it's writing it down, 5 things you want done, and then telling your your spouse or your friend or whatnot. Um, I I'm flip-flopping between natural organic reduction, which is human composting, which is not legal here yet.
Mhm.
So in order for that to happen, I'd have to be
Shipped out,
outsourced
right.
to Colorado. Um, and in which case you can get like a truckload of material returned to, and then used in a park or my own garden. My husband would have to shovel me around basically. And I thought it'd be cool, for my memorial to have like mason jars filled with the compost and like wildflower seeds mixed in, and then everybody gets to take home a little piece of me.
I love that.
Um, and then on the other side, I called around to all the green burial cemeteries in the state. There's not a lot. And there happens to be one in Deep River that I kind of was like, it's like overlooks the Connecticut River. And you're not allowed to plant like a tree, but you could plant bulbs in the ground. And this would be like, you would buy your plot and your whole body would go in. So um, I like the idea of like a home funeral and then a shrouding. So like where you just wrapped in a nice like muslin or bamboo or cotton shroud and placed directly in the ground.
That's
So
great. And you don't have to be in a casket or a
nope,
container.
nope,
Yeah, I
yeah.
like that. Yeah,
So
I'm sure, I mean, us deaf girls, we think about that kind of stuff all the time. And you're right. I'm constantly changing my mind about what I want to do.
yeah,
Because like, why not? Why not? It's just like it's like planning a birth or planning, a wedding or a graduation party, it should be something to celebrate. It's your last hurrah, man, out of here. So,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and it's, the industry is changing, which is which is great. A breath of fresh air.
It is. It is.
Mhm.
So I figure the more conversations I have, the more, even if they go home and they tell one person, whether that's a friend or, an older loved one who doesn't want to talk about it, like what, and you can make it like you literally can make it fun. You can make it silly. It doesn't have to be so more, it's of course it's going to be sad. You're going to be sad. You're losing your loved one, but to to go and I didn't know that burial at sea was an option, right? You can just be put into the water 3 nautical miles out and just be placed in the water. And I was like, how fun to like take a boat and
Mhm.
play some yacht rock Everybody
Right.
wear like captain's
Mhm.
hats and I don't know, just
Yeah,
so
you're right. It doesn't have to be that. I don't know. Like I just think about my family, and it's always been, the traditional, wake and the traditional funeral. And it's been, it's just kind of like this whole like grim experience.
mhm.
And that personally does not reflect me. I don't want to do it
Yeah.
like that. So, and you're right, you have to talk about it and write things down and let people know. And I think that's the most challenging about being in this field is getting people to talk about it. Even the dying. So I volunteer for hospice, and I just had an experience the other day, and the client is on hospice. And so I called the contact person, and they did not want me to treat this person like they were on hospice. They didn't want me to talk to them about what was happening, like none of this. And what the contact person said was, "We're not ready, and he's not ready." And so that's what that's what we're kind of fighting against. And she's not the first person that has actually said that to me. I mean, I've had family members that have said to me, when I go into the room, don't tell them where you are, where you're from. So, and it's like,
Really.
but the dying person knows, and
Yeah.
they want to talk about it, right? They want to settle things out.
Hmm.
It's not necessarily the dying that's having the issue.
The
It's
living.
the family, right? Yeah. And you kind of
Yeah.
struggle with that, it sounds like, with your mom.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, weeks before leading up to her in the hospital, I had told her, I said, number one, if you don't want to do these life-saving measures, then don't call 911 the next time. Like,
Right.
because what's going to happen is your body's going to do what it's been trying to do for the past year. It's going to shut down and you're going to pass away. Like, that's just the facts. If you call 911, they're going to do everything in their power to save you. They're going to whisk you off to the hospital and they're going to intubate you. They're going to, they're going to give you all the things. And that could preserve your life for another couple of weeks, a month, or a day, but then you're going through all of these procedures for nothing, really, when you
Get
could
the same
just,
result, right?
yeah, yeah.
Totally
And
get it.
maybe it does buy you enough time to then properly say goodbye to your loved ones. I think that, um, for us, that was the hardest part because we were still at the tail end of COVID. The hospital still had a lot of rules in place about COVID vaccines and children not coming into the hospital at all. Like our I
Yeah.
think it was 18 and older. And so my sister was like, we're bringing them in. I don't know how we're going to do it yet. We're going to figure it out. And that night after visiting hours, the nurse on duty is like, yep, yep, just bring them up, bring them up. And so they got to see her. She was still talking at that time. They got to like say, just say hi. And I think unfortunately, because it was a hospital death and because of all the rules and regulations, if I were to do it again, I would have had my children more involved. I would have had them see her alive and then passed because she still looked the same. Like she didn't look scary. She looked like her. Um, and then they could have seen that. So
It's all, we're all just, this is our first time here, and we're
figuring it
all just
out.
learning, and we're just, yeah, we're figuring it out, and we're making sure that we're just going to do it better the next time, right? That's what it's about.
Yeah.
So, so do you want to tell me like what's going on with the Death Collective and
Sure.
that kind of good stuff?
Well, I'm kind of flying a little solo, but um, but regardless, like I've been doing this now for I think I kind of took over the social media. It's been, I think, a year, at least a year. And the events I've been managing for quite some time. So I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. I would gladly receive help from any community member who either, I mean, website, I'm not big on website design, but I'm learning slowly.
Mhm.
Uh, Regardless, the goal is to maintain once a month potlucks. The goal is to once a month or once every couple of months do death over drafts events at breweries, and then an educational piece. So, whether that's quarterly, having something at a library or um, even like a senior center. I haven't reached out to senior centers yet to do like a conversation. And then,
I've reached out to a couple of them and haven't really gotten anywhere. And again, it's that whole thing.
we don't want to talk about.
You don't talk about it. Like, who's going to come to that? People,
People will.
people
The
come.
people that are curious will.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I went to a pretty robust death cafe in Middletown. This might have been in the fall of last year. There's this gentleman's name is Daniel. He's a chaplain. I want to say he might have moved on, but to a different town. But he did a sermon kind of talking about life and death and leaving a mark, and then he did a death cafe following his, so a lot of his congregation members just came. So there was like 30 to 40 people sitting in a circle, you know, sharing their fears, sharing their experiences. Some were very prepared and had like their cemetery plots picked out and all their details, and some were like, I need to do that. I should probably do that or start thinking about that.
Exactly.
Um,
That's a good idea to do it that way.
yeah. And it was really well received. I mean, everybody there was really grateful to just be able to have that conversation. Um,
Did you
I
break them up into small groups or was it like a big group?
They just went around in a circle. So everybody had a handful of minutes to introduce themselves and kind of say why they were there. And then we had a chance to pretty much go around almost a second time. If anybody had any, so like kind of popcorned at the end where people were like, I'd like to say something, or I'd like to add.
Mhm.
So um
I did
yeah,
it. I did attend a death cafe. I was the kind of like the guest speaker. I wasn't kind of, I was the guest speaker. So it was interesting because, gosh, it was at a facility, like an independent living kind of facility. So it was all, elderly people and they were super curious about it and excited about it. So, that's another good way in is those like, independent living kind of places. But again, it's not necessarily the residents that don't want to talk about it. It's like the staff doesn't want to present it because they're afraid it's going to trigger their residents. But that's
yeah,
not what's going to happen.
it's
They
gonna,
want
if
to talk
anything, it's
about it.
gonna inspire them to have more conversations with their family. Um,
Exactly. Yeah. I think it's, I think honestly, that is the biggest hurdle is just getting people to communicate. And so what I'm trying to do is this year, I'm just working on educating people, just getting people to talk about it. So I've started my own, death cafes, having, great conversations with people like you, continuing, to go to the collective events, which I love. And like you said, you meet all kinds of people there. You have people that are in the profession, and then you have people that, have just experienced death and just want to talk about it or are, death curious.
yeah,
It's so
yeah.
important.
It's pretty informal, but we do have a directory. Are you on it?
I am.
Okay. Because that's the other thing. We periodically get emails looking for people, right? They're looking for a death doula or they're looking for somebody in grief counseling. And so the goal really is to just continue to build this Rolodex of people,
Right,
the providers in the state.
right,
Um, the 3-part workshop I did at the library in Darien this past month, the first one was just talking about all the different disposition options. And the second one was really just about planning your party. Like, if you could plan the most elaborate party for your end of life, and whether that's you're still alive, maybe you've got your diagnosis and you don't want to do it when you're dead. You want to do it, you want to see all these people in person and hear what they have to say about you, eulogize you in person while you're alive. And then the third part was what's a death doula? Because I think a lot of people, they've never even heard the term, or an end of life, they just immediately think it's only hospice, what this person could be involved in your life for a year up to, when you pass away. So maybe your diagnosis is 6 months or less, but you live longer than 6 months and you just have somebody that's not a family member who is honest and can have these conversations and help you to the next stage. Basically, you labor in and you labor out.
for sure, for sure. Yeah. Um, it's funny. I had a woman reach out to me, and she, we really hit it off, and she's not dying. She's not close to dying. She's healthy. But she is building her death team. That's what she calls it.
Nice.
And so she wants me to be her, her death doula. And
Wonderful.
I'm like, that's how
Yeah.
it should be, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be somebody even that you hire. I mean, a death doula can, be a family member that is just really good at this kind of stuff, right?
Well, that would be the other thing. I would recommend that any person on this planet do like a free Death Doula 101 class, just so they can grasp like all the different concepts of what that could look like at the end.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I mean, does a person have the capacity to sit bedside? Not everybody has the capacity to do that, but at least if they have the knowledge of what that might look like, they can then decide. They can make an informed choice of like, okay, I can do that, or oh no, that's not for me.
Or even to just prepare the rest of, the family and the support, this is what end of life is going to look like. This is what's going to happen to the body. This is what you're going to save. This is, this is what's happening. And it settles people down, because if you're not prepared for it, it can be frightening.
Yeah. Did we did just recently did a virtual screening of The Last Ecstatic Days. Have you seen that yet?
I haven't. How was that?
It was intense. It was beautiful. But it's real, right? It's it's the full picture. It's a little bit if you have all the resources and money in the world, this is what you could experience, right? This is obviously not for everyone. But the realizing all the possibilities of ritual and what that looks like, the fact that you could build your own casket, you could decorate your own casket, you could have healers come in at the end to just help you with that transition. It was pretty profound. It definitely was a little triggery because it brought me back to my own mother's passing, but
Right.
but also knowing that some of the sounds that you hear, those are normal. That's literally just the natural process of the body like shutting down. And I think again, it's not as scary once you know like what to expect.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
So let me, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. So, I noticed, and I talked about this before we started rolling here, is that you do psychopomp?
well, so I don't I just learned about this in more depth through my school. So I did some research to try to kind of, because I've been on this like ancestor path. So I've been like looking into my own ancestors and what that looks like. And then through that looked into like the psychopomp for Scottish heritage and the psychopomp for Scandinavian heritage and like that kind of. And so then I created an altar. I've got a little mini one back there, and that is Morrigan, who's like the Celtic goddess of death. And she's also can transform herself into a raven. And my daughter's name is Raven. And I was like, this, this really resonates.
Right. So can you explain what psychopomp is for anyone that doesn't really know what it is?
Well, basically, from what I learned is that we have these guides kind of help us along the way. So whether that's your ancestors, whether that is a psychopomp, somebody, and obviously you yourself can be a psychopomp, the person who is helping to guide the next person into that next phase. So I'm not sure if I'm there yet, right? I'm just kind of dipping my toes in this whole world, but it is it's intriguing and
that
exploring.
Geraldine does it.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, to be able to be on this plane and to have the capacity to do what things that she does, to communicate, to to help travel from one plane to the next.
Yeah. And we're so much more than the physical body, right?
Yeah.
At least I think we are. So
yeah.
And one last question. Who from the deaf community do you follow on social media? Who do you like to follow?
I know I feel like I follow so many. Now I'm gonna have to look it up. I'll just give you a quick.
Of course, Amy Anakara.
Well, I just created my Instagram account for my own thing, which
I
I'm
saw that.
very slowly building. And I'm having my daughter do the logo because she
Cool.
did the logo for the Connecticut Death Collective, the second one, the headstone,
Wow.
her and my husband.
Nice.
Um, I follow Emerald Awakenings. Um, my wind phone because I'm very
Oh, yes.
passionate about wind phones. Um, there's a few others. Um, like I said, the connect or the Death and Grief Collective, Death
Yep.
and Grief Worker
Workers.
Collective, I
Yep.
follow. And there is an organization out of Canada that they're very much involved. I think they've created a documentary series that I've been meaning to. I'd love to do like a film festival. You know
Yeah,
what I
that would
mean?
be
Like
cool,
a
right?
Q&A, like so it's kind of similar to what we did with this virtual screening, but maybe either three small films in one, and then you have like you talk in between, you have a little, discussion in between the films.
So
Um,
let's talk about that after,
yeah,
because I think I have a venue that would be interested in doing that.
okay,
And
perfect.
that would be really cool to do that.
Yeah.
See, this is what happens is like, we start talking and
And then
then
synapses. Yeah,
exactly. And then we just want to, we just want to help, right?
yeah, yeah.
It's all about community.
The other person I follow, and I recently just purchased their workbook. It's called the Death Project Manager. They did very similar to say like the five wishes or whatever, but
Yeah.
extremely elaborate. So like talking about what do you do with your pets and your favorite songs and just all the different aspects, your digital, like write down all your passwords for all your,
Yes.
but it's a pretty thorough workbook and I think it's $25 to buy online. But I've not filled mine out yet because again, I love talking about this, but I'm like, I need to get
I know. I
on
know.
the stick here.
I know. We'll be the worst ones, right? Yeah, I get it. I get it. So, all right. Well, I think we had a really great conversation.
Yeah.
I'm super excited that you were able to do this. What is coming up for you and for the
So
collective?
So this month is the Death Over Drafts. At the end of the month, it's actually, well, gosh, it's next week. That's insane.
I know.
It's
It's
next
in
week.
Woodbridge.
It's at Woodbridge. Because our potlucks have been pretty large the past two times, we're going to be back at Sticks and Stones in
Good.
June. It's Father's Day, which may or may not be a good turnout or not, but I figured we could honor like a father, a grandfather, some masculine person in your life, whether that is could be just an uncle or somebody who was important to you in your life. And then I haven't even had a chance to like think about the next steps, right? So again, potlucks are the third Sunday of every month, but open to people hosting. So, one woman hosted a couple of months ago in Windsor. She was really passionate about doing it. She can't come on Sundays, so she created one on a Saturday, and I just went up there to support her. So I encourage anybody who wants to host an event, host something. If they want me to share it or the collective to share it, I'm happy to share it on social media, on the newsletter. And yeah, I mean, I'm always looking for help. So anybody who wants to collaborate or connect on, and I mean, at the end of the day, if it comes to a point where I don't have the capacity to keep doing what I'm doing, I'd love for somebody else to be like, but I do, I've got the capacity. And so,
Right.
really, my hope for this group is that it just continues to grow and people get inspired to do these things in their own communities and to keep doing it, keep moving. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Kate, for taking the time out of your morning to be with me. This was so awesome. And I'm going to put all of your little resources in the description. I might have to reach out for just a couple of things,
yeah.
but I'm really looking forward to getting this up and sharing it with everybody. And so thank you all for watching, and we will see you next time here at Amy Anapara. Do, 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 do.